NAACP president outside. Thank you, everyone. We'll be getting started, promise, in the next 5 minutes. Next 5 minutes, okay? No, it's not a black 5. It's not a black 5 minutes. Good to see you.
Do you have enough space?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I appreciate you so much.
No, well, no tips.
place you like that. We sent people, but give me 1 minute, Jerry.
Okay. My press conference. Okay.
It kills my son. It is life that is taking. Stop chasing. Stop chasing.
Good afternoon. My name is Devin Barrington Ward. That's spelled Devin, last name Barrington-Ward. Again, Devin Barrington Ward with the National Police Accountability Project. I'm their Director of Communications and their spokesperson on this particular matter. I am going to kick off our press conference, but we have one of our elected officials from the city of Atlanta who has another obligation who would like to speak first. So I'd like to introduce Councilmember Bakhtiari, who will say a few remarks on behalf of herself and some other members of council.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? No? Louder? I will try to speak really loud. How's that? Good? Okay. My name is Liliana Bakhtiari. Press, do you need me to spell that? I'm guessing so. L-I-L-I-A, well, I wouldn't yell that part. L-I-L-I-A-N-A, B as in boy, A-K-H, T as in Tom, I-A-R-I. I'm the council member for District 5. I'm here speaking on behalf of myself and Councilmember Faroki. This is a part of the district that I will have next year. There's a lot that I can say about traffic calming, the things that need to happen. I'm going to allow that to be said by the Little Five Points community, and I'm here specifically to talk about the murder that was committed against Cooper yesterday and the pattern of Georgia State Patrol speeding on these streets, not caring about their own lives, not caring about human life, and through their actions repeatedly show us that human beings in this city and abroad are disposable. Chases should not happen. Chases are not safe. Moreland may be a state highway, but it goes through a community and a neighborhood. We have the technology and the ability to apprehend people who are committing illegal acts and speeding in these communities without exacerbating the situation. Pit moves by GSP are not safe. They oftentimes result in injury and death more often than not. We had someone killed 2 weeks ago in Buckhead, again by GSP. In my district in Cabbagetown, I've had Georgia State Patrol crash into multiple buildings on Carroll Street. We are lucky that no one was killed. And as far as Governor Kemp's statement today, where he couldn't even mention Cooper by name and made it a story about cops versus the left, I wish I could cuss. Shame on you. Disgusting. This has nothing to do with his political agenda of cops versus people. Nothing. And the fact that he couldn't even bear to mention someone's name. If you told me when I took this job that I would lose count of the number of children I would have to bury, I've lost count. To Cooper's chosen family and his loved ones that are here, I am so sorry that the only thing I can do is apologize to you and say that we'll do everything we can to make this better. But in hindsight, there's always more that we can do to save a life. And I promise you that we have a resolution coming to the state, but more so than that, we have to ask APD and the city to stand up to the state. We have to make demands of them. We need the community here to go before our transportation committees at the state. We need to make sure we're holding law enforcement agencies accountable. And because this has become so much about the safety and the fact that GSP is regularly harming and chasing people to a degree that regularly leads to murder, I would also like to talk about Cooper. And I ask people to please, I ask for one statement about Coop, because I believe that he should be humanized, because in all of this, his identity and his name are being lost. There was a statement, a press release put out about Cooper being an extraordinary human being. I want to say that in addition to that, he was fiercely loyal, protective of his family and friends. He was someone you could always count on to help anyone in any way without hesitation. He was crazy funny and super smart, and honestly a really good person who had everything good ahead of him. A 19-year-old child has had his life taken away, and the ripple effects of that and his family. I will do everything I can to keep showing up. Not just being here in a blazer today for a press conference, but being there for you in all the in-betweens and making sure that nothing like this ever happens again. I am so sorry. And to GSP, an agency that allegedly puts their life on the line, thank you for the work you have done. It's not an excuse to keep killing people and chasing people through residential areas. Stop the chase. Stop the chases altogether.
Stop the pin maneuver. Stop chasing.
Stop the chase!
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 Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here on what should be a joyful, artistic, and bustling part of our town, Little 5 Points. But instead of celebrating, we are mourning. Just days ago, a life was lost here. A bright 19-year-old named Cooper, who was a beloved employee of the Fox Theater and an aspiring filmmaker, was killed when a Georgia State Patrol initiated a high-speed chase in this very community. Cooper wasn't a suspect. He was not evading justice. He was just driving along in our community like so many of us do every day. To his mother, Kate, his friends and family who are gathered here today, I want to say as a parent myself, and as someone who visits this community regularly, I can't imagine the pain that you are going through. I pray that I never have to go through that type of pain. But I'm here to tell you, along with my colleagues, that your son's life mattered. Your friend's life mattered. Your colleague's life mattered. And we are going to do everything possible to make sure his death was not in vain. Now let's name what really happened here. Georgia State Patrol chose to pursue a driver at dangerously high speeds, and for what? A routine traffic violation. Something that, if handled with common sense and strategy, could have been addressed with a citation or a follow-up investigation. Instead, the State Patrol escalated the situation further and turned an attempted traffic stop into a death sentence for a teenager with a future. Let me be clear, their actions was not about the safety of the public. This was about a need for speed. It was about bravado. It was about flexing power at the cost of public safety. Now, we've seen this movie before. Dukes of Hazzard style policing, driven by adrenaline instead of accountability. Now, politicians and law enforcement officials have used catchphrases like smart policing in this city to request hundreds of millions of dollars for cameras, drones, license plate readers. And for what? We have turned Atlanta into one of the most surveilled cities in the world, despite the objectives of folks who are concerned about police surveillance. But even with all of these smart technologies, when push comes to shove, state troopers are still ready to rely on deadly high-speed chases instead of using the technology that taxpayers have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on. Let me paint the picture even further. The vehicle involved in the pursuit wasn't even a patrol car. It was a modified, very expensive Ford Mustang, a vehicle with no backseat, built not for detainment, but for speed. Ask yourself, what is the purpose of a police vehicle like that? It's not about safety. It's about ego. This is not a video game. This isn't Grand Theft Auto. This is not Need for Speed. This is not Gran Turismo. We are not playing PlayStation. We are playing with people's lives. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Georgia State Patrol has initiated nearly 500 high-speed chases this year alone. And from 2019 to this year, 63 people have died. These chases result in crashes, injuries, and death. And oftentimes, like Cooper, the people who die are innocent bystanders. And so we are calling for an immediate end to these dangerous pursuits. Stop the chase.
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 And let's be clear, other states have stopped the chase. Several states have implemented no chase laws or restrictive state pursuit policies to regulate high-speed police pursuits. These states include California, Florida, Michigan, even Texas are among them. In California, for example, the Highway Patrol there have strict guidelines that limit pursuits to situations where the suspect is wanted for a violent felony or poses an immediate danger to public safety. And no, their crime rates did not spike. This is not a radical ask. It's rational. While we believe that we should end all police chases, we are calling for 3 immediate common sense reforms to the chase policy for GSP. And that includes restricting high-speed pursuits to violent felonies only, requiring supervisory approval before initiating or continuing a pursuit, banning chases and pit maneuvers, particularly in densely populated areas like this, residential neighborhoods like this, and pedestrian-heavy corridors like this. These reforms, while we are very pleased to have members of our state legislature here today, does not require an act of the General Assembly. We can change this policy today. Governor Brian Kemp has the authority to make these changes without waiting for the legislature. He just needs the political will. And Mayor Andre Dickens, who has worked closely with GSP and the governor on public safety, must also join us in this call. Now, I want to address something directly. Governor Kemp released a statement via his spokesperson after this incident, and he did not mention Cooper's name. Not once. He only blamed the suspect and implied that those of us who are calling for restraint or reform are somehow opposed to law enforcement. Let me be clear. The driver absolutely bears responsibility. Should she have run from the police? No. But what we also must recognize is that there's well-documented cases of racism, abuses of power, civil rights violations, and deadly use of force, oftentimes disproportionately used against black people, brown people, and undocumented communities. Law enforcement must acknowledge and own that truth if we are ever going to really build true public safety in this city. But here's the most important point. Of the 3 people that were involved in this chase, only one of them was sworn to an oath to protect and serve. Only one of them was sworn to an oath to protect and serve. Why are we holding state troopers to a lower standard than the people they are chasing? And if we are not going to hold them to a true standard, then what is the point of having law enforcement in the first place? And so we know what the solution is. This is not something that we need to study. We've got the data. We know that police chases are even unsafe for the police. They're injured at higher rates in police chases than they are from gunfire. It's dangerous for all parties involved. And so for the people who are gathered here today and the people who are listening to this press conference, it's up to you. The governor has already issued a tone-deaf statement, but we must make him hear us loudly and clearly to stop the chase. Stop the chase.
Stop the chase.
Stop the chase.
Stop the chase.
Stop the chase.
Stop the chase.
Stop the chase.
Stop the chase.
Now we are also joined by members of the General Assembly, mostly members of the State House of Representatives, but we also have a member of the State Senate as well. And so I'm going to pass it over to them because not only do they have background information on the attempts to rein in these type of dangerous police chases, but many of them were here at the scene at a restaurant across the street when the chase took place. So I'm going to pass it over to State Representative Sandra Scott, who's joined by State Representative Kim Schofield, State Representative Viola Davis, and State Representative Eric Bell, along with State Senator Gail Davenport.
Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Sandra G. Scott, serving District 76 in Clayton County. Speak up. Okay, the other night, we were having a pre-birthday celebration dinner over here at Hudson Grill, and the car was speeding down the highway and the police was behind them, and the next thing we heard was a loud boom, almost like a tank had gone off, and we all jumped up and ran out of the restaurant to see, saying, oh my God, whoever was driving that car have hit someone. And we knew when we came out of that restaurant and walked down the street a little bit, we knew that the person had to be dead. Someone in that car had to be dead. There was no way that they could live because I'm telling you, it knocked that car down the road a bit. And our heart we just went to praying and asking God to have mercy on whoever it was and have mercy on their family, because we know the pain that that family was going through. And then the young lady came back into the restaurant to say that it was a young man and he was killed on impact, and that his mother worked down the street. And so they didn't know whether he was coming from visiting his mother or just on his way home. But, you know, we felt the pain in our hearts because we know as parents, we don't want to see anything happen to our children because we live for our children to hopefully be able to bury us, not we bury them. But I could say that I'm going to ask the governor to do a executive order and stop the chase. Stop the chase, because we know that these chases are not beneficial for either family, not even for the GPS. It's not beneficial for them. So with that, we're going to send the governor a letter asking him to stop the chase, because we must try to save people's lives. You can get a tag number and you can go and research that tag number later and go and find that individual. We must stop these chases because too many people, innocent people are dying. And so I will say to you all and to the parents, my heart hurts for you, and you have my deepest sympathy and condolence. And may God be with you during this trying time. Thank you.
Good evening, good afternoon. I'm State Senator Gail Davenport, and first let me just say to the family, deepest condolences to you for the loss of Cooper. I had a bill a couple of years ago in the State Senate, SB 138, and this past session we reintroduced that, and it's Senate Bill 319 concerning vehicular pursuits. We just feel that innocent people should not be killed, and that at some point police officers should call off these police chases so that innocent people will not die. There should be some standard, some type of procedure in place that says that everybody follows. All law enforcement will follow this and make sure that we do not have these high-speed chases going on. This year's bill 319 was in honor called the Dorothy Mae Smith Wright bill. She was a graduate of Marsh Brown College. She was a grandmother. She was killed right there in Southwest Atlanta. She was killed, and her two grandchildren were killed. They were thrown out of the car, and one of the children, the police officer didn't even know that they were in the car and they were laying out there. So at some point you need to stop this. We had in the bill to try to stop it unless there is emergency where you have a murder, a person aggravated battery, assault, any type of felony, kidnapping, rape, those type of things we know. But a traffic violation, at some point you need to call off the chase so that innocent people will not die. We had pushback on that from the Sheriff's Association. And we are saying that you need to look at this, you need to revamp and call it what it is, and talk about safety. It's in public safety now, but I support this effort here to call on the governor. It takes advocacy to get things done. And a bill might sit forever, but if you are out here in these streets saying that you want to change, then change will come. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all for being here. State Representative Eric Bell, District 75. First, I would like to give condolences to Cooper Shanky and the Shanky family. One life lost in the state of Georgia is one life too many. Today we stand in a state that is deemed the #1 to do business, but what about to raise a family? What about to live the dream that is promised to all Americans of safety in your home, safety in your communities, safety in your streets? But when that very safety is threatened by those who are sworn by oath to protect your life, sworn by oath to make sure that we are able to live and breathe and experience the inalienable rights that are done by the Congress, the Constitution, and our Bill of Rights, there is an issue. And today the issue is that we have unhinged police officers, GPS officers, chasing individuals in the streets, regardless of what they did, the infraction is. And one life is too precious to lose. So we must call on the governor to issue an executive order, to call on the leader of this state, a leader that leads us all, not black, not white, not Asian, not Haitian, not Caribbean, not Christian, not Jewish, not Muslim, but Georgians. All Georgians remain to be safe in their communities and be able to drive on the streets. If it was just a few moments later, it could have been one of these ladies. Or if it was just a few hours later, it could have been him. Or if it was just a few moments before, it could have been any of us. Because we've all been on the highways and byways when a police officer has chased by us, and we've only by the skin of our teeth made it. So it could have been anyone. When we talk about all lives matter, this is what we're talking about. When we're talking about black lives matter, this is what we're talking about. When we're talking about blue lives matter, this is what we're talking about. Because as a member of the state legislature, it pains me that we go day in and day out and give morning orders to the members of the GSP that have died from pit maneuvers, that have perished because they were involved in the chase of someone else. This not only shatters a family, but this shatters communities. And what we are doing now is picking up the shattered dreams of families and mourning their loved ones. So please, I implore you to not just stop here, but to make your way down at the Capitol, to the transportation committees, to the public safety committees, to the governor's office, to my office, to these offices, so that we would no longer have to mourn the lives of Dorothy nor Cooper or all the names that we come to know today. So please call on the governor to ban the chase, stop the pit maneuvers, to keep all Georgians safe. Thank you.
Again, just to add some context to this, 500 chases in 1 year alone, 63 people killed from 2019 to up till now, call it 64. When is enough going to be enough? If they are supposed to be engaging in traffic enforcement and encouraging people to drive safely, then you should model the same behavior, not exceed that behavior with excessive speeds on city streets. There are bike lanes on Moreland Avenue, MARTA bus routes, on Moreland Avenue, heavy pedestrian traffic on Moreland Avenue. The fact that this officer not for a moment stopped and said, wait a second, is this worth it? And I would question and submit to the public, is that someone that should be empowered with a gun and a badge and the ability to arrest people in our state and in our communities? This is not about being against law enforcement. This is about the preservation of life. I would like to bring up next Kate Weaver, who is a close friend of the family, to read a prepared statement, because as you can imagine right now, this is hell. They are going through hell. And so many other families have gone through hell, and I'm sure they didn't think that their child wouldn't come home, especially wouldn't come home this way. Kate, if you will.
Thank you. We are grieving the loss of our beloved Cooper, a kind and loving son, brother, and friend. He was a gentle soul with a big heart that matched his height. He had a dry sense of humor and was a master of comedic timing. He loved music and loved that his job at the Fox Theater allowed him to be immersed in it. He grew up in Atlanta, often in this little Five Points neighborhood. He cared deeply about equality, this community, and his neighbors. Any mother losing a child is an unthinkable tragedy, made worse only by the fact that this fatal accident could have been prevented. In honor of Cooper, we'll be advocating for responsible change to GSP's pursuit policy in hopes of preventing even one more innocent life being lost.
Our next speaker will be Attorney Gerald Griggs, who is the president of the Georgia NAACP.
First and foremost, I want to issue on behalf of the Georgia State Conference of the NAACP my condolences to Cooper's family. This should not have happened. Far too often we are at events like this, whether that's vigils, press conferences, funerals, and ultimately down at the Hall of Power to try to advocate on behalf of families who've been affected by police brutality and the lack of police accountability. And that's exactly what this is. And so we join in the call of these elected officials, the activists, the family, to the governor. First and foremost, Governor, you need to say Cooper's name. You need to say his name.
Say his name.
Secondly, there needs to be reform on the Georgia State Patrol. Far too often we've called for this, whether that's transparency through body cams or stopping the chase. Because let's be clear, as Devin and others have outlined, this is the most surveilled city in the world. We have flock cameras everywhere. We have drones everywhere. And even in the last century, there was an old saying that you can't outrun the radio. So if you are chasing somebody for a minor traffic infraction, all you have to do is radio ahead. All you have to do is check the flock camera to determine what part of the city they're in and where their car stopped. How do I know? I see it every day in courtrooms. I literally just left the courtroom. And so for people to say, well, it's about public safety. It's not about public safety when a family has to bury their loved one. What's more important in this state than life, the sanctity of life? And so as the oldest civil rights organization in this state, and the nation for that matter, life is the most ultimate civil right. And so Governor Kemp, it's time for you to recognize that police accountability is an all-encompassing issue. It's something that you, regardless of your political affiliation, can get behind because it protects the safety of the officer, it protects the safety of the alleged criminal, it more importantly protects the safety of the public. You know, I grew up in Atlanta. I've always come down to little 5 points, whether that's Junkman's Daughter, criminal records, Wish the shoe shop. I never thought that me coming to little 5 points, could end in the death of a civilian at the hands of a public servant. I'm going to say that again. The death of a civilian at the hands of a public servant. We have to do better. This is a shame. And so again, Governor Kemp, before the sun goes down, you can sign an executive order.
Right now.
You can do it right now. I'm sure you're somewhere, either at the governor's mansion or at your office or somewhere at a business meeting. You can do this. But if you don't do this, I can promise you, we will come to your house, we will come to your office, we will come to your meetings until you say Cooper's name and you sign that executive order honoring his memory so that no other family has to go through this. So on behalf of the Georgia State Conference, we will be behind you 100%, and we will make sure that this happens. Thank you.
Again, there's some important context to add here, because while we are focused on the Highway Patrol, this is a law enforcement issue. Now, the Highway Patrol oftentimes is the most egregious agency as it pertains to their pursuit policy and the ways that individuals have been killed and maimed and harmed due to the way that they engage in pursuits. But there have been individuals who have been killed by law enforcement that are not Highway Patrol because of their pursuit policies. And while we are asking for and demanding that there is a change in GSP's pursuit policy, we still need the legislation of Senator Davenport so that this applies to all law enforcement throughout the state of Georgia. Because this is not just an Atlanta issue. It's amplified in Atlanta because of our congestion, because of our traffic, because of the fact that we're the most pedestrian-friendly area in the state, the fact that there are many cyclists. There's much more at stake in the city of Atlanta because of the way that we are designed. But this is a statewide issue. People in South Georgia can talk about how they have been harmed because of police chases, where an individual was paralyzed from the waist down after a state trooper did a pit maneuver on a vehicle that they were pursuing, again, over a minor traffic violation, and the vehicle ended up on her front porch, and she ended up pinned between the vehicle and her house. This is a statewide problem. This is a law enforcement problem. But we can start with the Georgia Highway Patrol. We must start somewhere. I want to turn it over next to some medical professionals, trauma surgeons, and physicians with SCOOP, which is an advocacy group for medical professionals here in the city of Atlanta, to talk about what it is like to treat some of the injuries that are associated with these type of pursuits. Please, Dr. Spencer.
Thank you. My name is Mark Spencer. I'm an internal medicine physician in Atlanta and the director of Stop Criminalization of Our Patients. Our organization exists to provide education around the harms of the criminal legal system and how this harm disproportionately impacts many of our most vulnerable patients. We first would like to acknowledge how difficult this time must be for Cooper's friends and family, and our hearts go out to them. The loss of life is made all the more devastating as it was entirely preventable. As physicians in Georgia, we are intimately familiar with how Georgia policy creates premature death and preventable suffering. What we are here today to talk about is policy, how policy creates the conditions under which we live our lives, the opportunities and choices we have, what resources we have access to. Policy is also a way of assigning value, of whose lives matter and whose lives don't. As a physician in a safety net hospital, each day is a Sisyphean task in addressing the preventable suffering patients experience as a result of policy decisions. Policies on housing, transportation, medical insurance, education, transit, policing, and on see so many of our patients experience harms and extreme marginalization. This policy-driven, differential exposure to preventable suffering is what Dr. Paul Farmer referred to as structural violence. I say this all because it must be made clear that Georgia's policies around police pursuit are what took Cooper's life. Too often, it is the least responsible for harmful policies that bear the brunt of their consequences. These pursuits, done under the guise of public safety, provide anything but. They cause far more harm than they prevent, and there's simply no excuse. As Devin said, the evidence is quite clear. In the hospital, when preventable harm occurs, we debrief, review, scrutinize, and adjust policies and procedures so it won't happen again. Yet when it comes to policing, I see no similar introspection, critical dialogue, or drive to lessen harm done. The lack of a sound and common sense police pursuit policy is emblematic of a criminal legal system in Georgia that is immune to evidence and free from accountability. Because of this, people continue to die preventable deaths in our communities, on our roads, and in our prisons and jails. We must demand better. I'd like to introduce Dr. Mihir Chowdhury, trauma surgeon, who will talk about how these pursuits impact patients.
Thank you, Dr. Spencer. First and foremost, my deepest condolences to Cooper's family and to all the families who have lost loved ones due to these kinds of police pursuits and police actions. As Dr. Spencer mentioned, my name is Dr. Chowdhury. I am a trauma surgeon and trauma surgery fellow who works here in the city of Atlanta. And I want to take a minute to share the kind of clinical injuries we see within our trauma centers. I can tell you firsthand that the types of injuries I have seen resulting from high-speed police pursuits have been the most devastating injuries that we see in the ED. We often focus on police-involved shootings, which are also very devastating. However, when it comes to what we call critical polytrauma, these are the types of injuries that result from police pursuits. And I've worked in many different cities, many of them larger than Atlanta, San Francisco, Chicago. It is here in Atlanta where I see surprisingly high numbers of patients come through our trauma bays with critical blunt polytrauma from police pursuits, far more than these other cities. These pursuits, when I'm talking about critical blunt polytrauma, what am I talking about? I'm talking about injuries to multiple compartments of the body. So we often see patients who have devastating traumatic brain injuries, multiple broken bones. They're hemorrhaging and bleeding into multiple body cavities, their abdomen, their chest. This is not uncommon. This is usually what happens in these kinds of situations. Within our overstretched public hospital systems, these patients, we do everything we can to pick up the pieces and try to save their life. This involves massive transfusion protocols, multiple surgeries, prolonged hospital stays, and many do not survive. Patients who we are able to save have prolonged disabilities and may require rehabilitation for the rest of their life if they are able to survive. It's enormous strain and burden on our healthcare system. From a public health perspective, if we can prevent these injuries, if we can pass policies that prevent police chases from resulting in these injuries, we would be able to focus on saving many, many more lives. I'll just end by saying, as someone who seeks to holistically heal and care for those with these kind of traumatic injuries, I want to add my voice to the chorus we've heard, urging the governor and the city to take action to prevent the lethal consequences of high-speed police pursuits. Thank you.
So as we wrap up today, I just want to again, Devin Barrington Ward, I'm the Director of Communications at the National Police Accountability Project, and we are a national organization that's made up of over 500 civil rights attorneys from across the country. Our members represent victims of police misconduct litigate for justice and fight for reform from the ground up. And we've seen time and time again how a lack of accountability both kills literally and spiritually in our communities across this country, including here in Atlanta. So you've heard from the National Police Accountability Project. You've heard from the NAACP. You've heard from our trauma surgeons. You've heard from our elected officials. And most importantly, you've heard from Cooper's family. We have to do something. Doing nothing is worse than not doing anything at all. We have to do something, because if not, we are complicit in the continued carnage that is taking place on our streets. And the last time I checked, I don't live in a virtual reality game like Grand Theft Auto. I live in the real world. And so when you die here, you don't come back. You don't come back. And so we'd like to open it up to members of the media and the public if you'd like to ask some questions for some additional context to what we said here today.
I would like to say I'm from Tennessee, and my son was here about the Georgia State Patrol, and I have been trying to get in touch with the NAACP and all of the city officials, and I haven't got in touch with anyone. Not even the Georgia State Patrol have even reached out and said they were sorry for what happened to my son. My son, they chased my son on the highway.
Come up here.
They chased my son on the highway at 3 o'clock in the morning coming home to Chattanooga. My son was, I'm sorry. I would like to say hello to everybody, and I appreciate everybody that's coming out today for this. I am so sorry for Cooper's family. I have been protesting and trying to get this taken care of before this happened to Cooper or anybody else that have had this done to them within the year of 2023. My son was murdered by the Georgia State Patrol coming home from a Dalton oyster pub. They singled out my son because he had a driver's out tag on his car. I guess they thought it was stolen, but my son had just purchased the car. My son had license and everything. My son was scared of being a young black man by himself coming home with 15, 16 police cars behind him. He was scared. That's why he did not pull over. He was trying to get to a safe place to pull over. I know my son, so I know that's what he was trying to do. I have reached out to the NAACP, no harm to y'all at all. I have reached out to the city officials for trying to get justice and get this pit maneuver and get this chasing stopped, because it should no one lose their life for a traffic violation. Even to the police officers, as this young man said, put their life in danger. Pedestrians put their life in danger. So if we can all as one come together and try to get this banned and stopped all over the world, not just here in Georgia. It's a lot of people losing their life with this pit maneuver and chasing, but really in Georgia, because Georgia has no cap on how fast they can go in chasing. And we need to get that stopped immediately, or we're going to keep on having this right here, this pain. Cooper's family is in pain. I'm in pain 3 years. I don't know whether to be happy or sad. I don't know. My son has a daughter. I have to explain that to her, that she's not going to see her daddy anymore. She's only 8 years old. She was 7 years old. 6 years old when this happened to her father. I'm sorry, I just get so upset. I get emotional when it comes to talking about my son. I come 2 hours, and anytime I see anything happen for the pit maneuver or chasing, I try to be a part of it, because I needed to stop. I just need to stop. We all needed to stop. We really do. And that's all I have to say. And thank you, Jeffrey Thomas.
Jeffrey Thomas.
Thank you. Thank all of you.
Again, if there's any questions from the members of the media, we'll take that now. If not, we'll wrap up the press conference. We appreciate your time today. Next steps is that many of us will be at Atlanta City Hall next Monday when council is back from recess, with the hopes that we will be able to get introduced and potentially passed on emergency legislation, a resolution or legislation to the state, urging the state of Georgia to revise its pursuit policy, and also for the city of Atlanta to examine its pursuit policy and the ways that they are requesting support from the Georgia Highway Patrol when officers are requesting support on the streets of the city of Atlanta. So if there's no questions, we'll wrap up here. Thank you so much. there is no resolution. Senator Davenport will Senate Bill 319.